All right. Hello, everyone, and happy Thursday. We're back for another Grow Nebraska webinar. I don't see too many people on here live, but people might hop on as we go, or they may just wait for the recording. So we're going to go ahead and get started so I don't take up too much of Steve's time. So of course, thank you to Center for Rural Affairs for sponsoring yet another Grow Nebraska training. Without them, none of this would be possible. So huge shout out to them. Our featured sponsor for this month is Wells Fargo Foundation. Our featured member is Rustic and Red, and they joined Grow Nebraska in 2018. So if you're in their area, we definitely recommend that you check out their shop because they have a lot of apparel and gifts that you can give to family or for yourself. And this week's presenter is Steve Maly with Maly Marketing, and you may recognize him from Market Tech as he was one of our presenters there. So I'm going to stop my screen share and let Steve take over.
Awesome, definitely appreciate it. As you mentioned, I'm pulling my presentation, I did go through this at Market Tech as well. And if you guys have any additional questions, definitely let me know. Just as a quick heads up for some of you that can relate. If you have a spouse, whatever. In my case, my wife, she told me probably 7 times that I have a camp I need to take my daughter to and pick her up from today, and neglected it until last night when it hit me. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, that's today. So I'm just giving you a heads up. I'm gonna have to dive off here about 12:45 or so. But let's dive in. Let's go. Which button here? Go. There we go. So what I'm going to talk about, do kind of a deeper dive. And sorry, I'm going to switch something here real quick just to get the screen set up right on my end. There we go. A deep dive into stop lighting your marketing money on fire. So overall, just quick on my side of it, there's a picture of my beautiful family. It's my middle daughter right there. It's the one that I'm transporting to camp today. One quick note. So you can see my contact information here, steve@malymarketing.com. If you guys have any questions after the fact, you want to talk shop, you just want to bounce an idea off of me, feel free to reach out. I love talking shop, love going through some of this stuff. I was going to joke, I don't have a law degree. And because of that, I'm not going to send you an invoice for $300 for a 15-minute conversation type of thing. Again, I love doing this, so feel free to reach out if you do have any questions after the fact. On our side of it, we've been in business for a little bit over 19 years, 19 and a half years at this point in time, which is pretty crazy once I kind of think about it. We've worked with small companies, large companies all throughout the state, throughout the region, and at this point, kind of coast to coast. And we typically have a client or two over in the UK at any given moment in time as well. So anybody from the tourism side of it, from North Platte, I did see somebody is here from North Platte, Kearney, McCook. We've also done a lot with Aloe, really throughout the state, and with their expansions in Max Creek, Leadership Resources. And on the flip side of it, we've done it with some bigger national brands. Zero Shoes was on Shark Tank 6-7 years ago, and we've been with them for the last 6 years. Gallup, we helped them with one of their most recent book launches and helped them hit the New York Times bestsellers list. We've done some pet projects for the state of Nebraska on the tourism side of it. Now we are not the ones that came up with, honestly, it's not for everyone, but we do some pet projects with them. We did some consulting with Good RX. I'm sure you've seen their advertisements on TV all over the place. We did some billboard consulting with them. The bottom middle graphic, we actually did a presidential campaign, worked behind the scenes on a presidential campaign back in 2020. I can't tell you exactly who we worked with, but it was an experience. It was weird. It was definitely something we don't want to do again. But hey, it's got experience life. And then like Brightline Eating over on the my bottom left-hand side, we helped them hit the New York Times bestsellers list as well. The reason why I'm bringing these up is that total will manage roughly about $12 million a year in ad spend. That's online as well as offline. Some of these clients here, depending on the month, will spend upwards of $200,000 a month. So we'll help manage. GoodRx, another example, we'll spend about $25 million a month during the peak season. Now, we don't manage stats. We don't see the data on that side of it, but most of these other ones we do. But the reason why I bring that up is we learn things really fast. Marketing is all about data and information. And with these type of clients spending, high grosses amount of money on a monthly basis, we can learn things fast. We can then apply it to clients like these. We have some clients that are spending $500, $1,000, month on marketing. And maybe they're only doing it for 6 months out of the year. So we could take all those learnings from some of these big brands and apply it right back down here too, to hit the ground running. Because again, at the end of the day, I'm just interested in data. How does that data look? How does it work? And let's apply it to the clients that we have in hand. So with that being said, one of the things I always start off most of my presentations with is the story about human behavior. Because at the end of the day, I'm much more interested in what people say with literally their wallet than what they say they're going to do. Because what we say a lot of times is not the same thing we're actually spending money on. So what this story is, it's the very first client we ever had on Shark Tank. This has been a few years ago. I'm sure you guys have all seen Shark Tank, what that's all about. Our client was Pavlok. Pavlok, if you think about it, it's kind of like a Fitbit, if you will. But it's a Fitbit that helps you break a bad habit. What helps you break a bad habit is that it actually shocks you if you're doing a bad habit. So if I'm a smoker going like this, it'll know that I'm smoking and it'll shock me. They did studies on college students that had a hard time getting up for class in the morning. So what they do, they'd go to the Pavlok bed, and then they'd have to get up and do 10 jumping jacks before it would shock them. If they did 10, it wouldn't shock them whatsoever. They've done things like overeating. So I'm a picker when it comes to food. Is if my wife knows I'm trying to stop picking, she can literally pull out her phone, see me picking, and she can hit a button on her phone and it'll shock me. So that's how it stops you from creating and having that habit. So anyway, they reached out to us. They were a client of ours for a little bit at this point in time, and Manish, the owner, wanted to know, all the details. What's the cost to acquire a customer? What's the margins look like? What's the customer grab? Like all the details that the sharks typically ask. So we went in, helped him out with that whole side of it, and then he went to go film in front of those sharks. Now, one thing to keep in mind, that this was in the fall time, is about 70% of people that film in front of the sharks, their TV episode makes the air. The other 30% don't. They never see the light of day. The kicker of it, though, is that typically Shark Tank does not give you a heads up if you are going to be on TV or not, outside of about a 10-day window. If you are going to be on TV, they'll let you know about 10 days in advance. But that's it. Again, if you don't hear from them, that means you're not going to be on TV. So with this client, with Pavlok, since it helps you break bad habits, we assumed the perfect timing is going to be January. New Year's resolutions, new year, new you, those type of things will help people out. Well, we asked them each time and time again, like, hey, have you heard from Shark Tank? Have you heard from Shark Tank? No. Didn't hear anything from them whatsoever in January, February. Hey man, like, are you going to be on Shark Tank? Have you heard anything back? No. And so we went on like this. March, same story. Eventually April hits, like this is probably dead. Manish and Pavlok are about 30% that hits the editing room floor and just never sees the light of day. Well, fast forward to May, about the second week of May, is Manish contacts us and he's like, hey guys, we're going to be on Shark Tank. And like, I need you guys to be aggressive, run ads right when Shark Tank in and really promote the heck out of the product. So I asked him, like, all right, cool. Like, what did they say? What did the sharks say? Just give us some tidbits and nuggets. And he's like, I can't tell you anything. Like, I get it. You can't tell us you got funded or not, but just give us a nugget, something we can run with, something we can use in the advertising while you're on Shark Tank. So that way we tie everything back. He's like, I can't say. I'm like, all right, fine. So we got everything loaded up, ready to go. Most of the stuff we were doing at that point in time was social and Google Forum, but a huge chunk of it was on social. And we're getting things ready to roll. And as the date gets closer, I realize he's going to be on the season finale of Shark Tank, which is awesome. Now we start watching the season finale, and about halfway through, I realize he is going to be the last person on the season finale. At that point in time, I knew it was either going to go extremely well, all of the sharks go ahead and fund him, they sing Kumbaya, group hug, all that fun jazz, or really the complete opposite. So what ended up happening is going into it, we assumed Mark Cuban would be the most open shark to this whole thing. Well, right away, Mark Cuban called him a con artist, and a fraud, and told him to get out of there. And from that point forward, the sharks started arguing amongst themselves. They started going after Manish, kind of attacking Manish with different stuff. He's bouncing back and forth. He's the first one to admit he has horrible with ADD. And so he's bouncing back and forth. And like, it's not going well at all. And it really goes downhill fast. Well, all the sharks drop out except for Mr. Wonderful. Mr. Wonderful stayed on and he made them an offer. And Manish said, hey, I appreciate the offer. Let me go outside and call one of my partners on this whole thing. Let me chat with him real quick and I'll come back in. Mr. Wonderful's like, no, we're a new business. I need a decision and I need a decision now. So you see Manish kind of thinking there for a second. And then eventually he goes, you know what, man, like we're not a good fit. You're in it for the money. I'm in it to change lives. We're not aligned. We're not a good fit. No, I'm going to turn down your offer. Well, the next 5 to 6 words I can't say directly, but it was basically F you, get the F out of here, cut to black, roll credits, because at the end of the episode, our ads go live right that second. And so got a ton of backlash. He came across horribly on TV. Now, he was in front of the Sharks for roughly 15 minutes. They take the 50-minute segment and edit it down to about 8 minutes overall. It's edited for TV and entertainment purposes. But he came across as horrible. All of these people, because again, it's social. Online, we're talking about him. He's what's wrong with millennials. This is where the world's going. We're all screwed. Somebody blamed him for avocado toast for some reason. People just hated it. And time again, people would comment, I'll never buy this. This is a fraud product, if you will. This is terrible. And so, we got a bunch of backlash. What we ended up doing, though, we realized two things. One, we needed to tell a better story. And in marketing at times, that's simply what we need to do is be able to tell a better story. So what we ended up doing was going through a bunch of content. We did some Facebook Lives, some Instagram Lives, wrote some different articles, because people at the end of the day just had a lot of questions how this worked and the research and everything behind it. So we're able to tell a better story, have him kind of explain himself a bit better. And since it's online, we're able to retarget all these people kind of going through the whole cycle. One tidbit, real quick, is that typically, if you're on Shark Tank, you'll see about a 30% dip in revenue, 30% increase in revenue, regardless if you get funded or not. In his case, it was a 30% dip in revenue about the first 7 days after the episode aired. But as we retargeted people and told a better story and we filled in some of those gaps and really educated people, we end up seeing about a 30% bump if you take a look at about a 30-day period afterwards as well. One of the biggest things, too, we took away from it is, again, since it was social and a bunch of people were talking about, we'll never buy your product, is we can see the name attached to that. After 30 days, we went through a client list of all the orders during those previous 30 days. And actually, there's quite a few of those people that said, we'll never buy that in a purchase. Again, because your wallet speaks stronger than your word. So what I'm more interested in, again, is human behavior than necessarily what people say. And again, it's a good tangent on you got to tell a better story at times in order to get people to come through. The other thing we're big believers in is academic studies. Now, they can be a little bit drier than most studies. They're typically not as one-sided, if you will. Most famous example of a one-sided study was years ago. There's a study that came out that said smoking is actually good for you. Well, it was funded by Philip Morris. So obviously, they're going to say that smoking is good for you. Academic studies typically don't have that help. So we came across one a few years back. And in marketing, they always talk about got to be different, got to be different, got to be different, got to be different. So this professor took a look at companies worldwide and took a look at all those companies and to see, how truly different are the companies. And what he found out is in reality, it was about 94% of companies are really about the same. Little tweaks, little variances here and there, but they're largely about the same. So it's not necessarily about being different. It's more about being distinctive. Really, how do you grab somebody's attention? How do you get somebody to stop scrolling? How do you get somebody to notice a billboard, a print ad, whatever it may be? So the key is first to be distinctive, to stop the scroll, if you will, and then you can start talking to how you're a little bit different in your process and procedures and products and services and all that fun stuff from the get-go. And key to that is being distinctive. So as a business owner, I know there's a lot of owners on here as well. This is what I look at. So yes, I run a marketing company, but obviously I have numbers I have to meet in order to hit. And this is what I'm always looking at as a business owner. The biggest change in the market overall, especially over the last, at this point, about 12 months, is truly transfer of money. Things are becoming a lot more expensive. Obviously, you have inflation, which finally is kind of coming back down, but across the board, things have just increased a ton. Examples of this and how that really works is online advertising. TikTok is up 55%. Meta, Facebook, Instagram is up 37%. Google 32 or 22%. Eggs, it feels like 1.3 million %. I have seen the egg prices actually start dropping back down over the last month or so, but costs online have just skyrocketed across the board. The key behind this is Google and Meta control almost half of all online ad spend. So if we're seeing increases of 30 to 50% on that side of it, obviously your overall advertising costs are really kind of going up. So that is one big factor that we're facing and we're trying to balance out. The other side of it is simply just an overcrowded marketplace. Now there are ad impressions, brand impressions all over the place. I was in Kansas City last week, giving a similar type of presentation to a tourism at a tourism conference, and looking around the room giving a presentation. Like I've seen like Nebraska gear, I see Aquafina water bottles, I see Coca-Cola. Somebody's wearing like a Nike hat. So you see these brand impressions all over. In fact, the average American sees between 4,000 to 10,000 brand impressions per day. And if you think about it, if you're just driving around down the street of how many different brand impressions you are getting, but it just bombards you. So what do you do when it's a more expensive market and a more distinct or more distracted market as well? Well, how we look at everything after strategy. Strategy is the key. Strategy is the top. Without strategy, we talk to our clients all the time. We're truly just kind of fishing in the dark. We have to have some clarity in what we're trying to do and what we're aiming for, where we're going. Strategy is everything required to reach the best result. That really is the definition of strategy, everything required. Now, what strategy is not is going to be just TikTok or Meta or ChatGPT or billboards or Google. Now you can have a strategy that is for Meta, that is for print ads, that is for billboards. But a lot of times, and we see it time and time again, business owner on down, people fall in love with tactics. They want to start with tactics. They hear everybody's on TikTok. I got to be on TikTok. That's a tactic. We want to take a look at that 10,000-foot view of strategy overall, because once we know the strategy, then it becomes very apparent. Yeah, we should be on TikTok. Hey, print ads make a lot of sense here, and billboards make a lot of sense here. But without that strategy, you're kind of guessing. You're throwing things up against the wall. What we always take a look at too is a book called The Long and the Short of It. The long and the short of it, it's mandatory reading in our office now, and it takes a look at historic marketing campaigns over decades, and truly the ones that moved the needle and got results versus the ones that did not. Not just what looked pretty, what looked cool, what was sexy in the moment, but truly like what moved and gained results with that. And so this book does a deep dive in it, and what it all comes back down to is that obviously you need to get results now. You also need to get results in the future. So it's that balance between the short term and the long term. It's called the long and short of it for a reason. If you take a look at that red line, that's more short term. That's more sales activation. It's, buy now, 20% off, those type of things. And when you run those sales, you do see an uptick. But then when you shut those sales off, you see a downtick, it just kind of flows. That blue line is more brand building. That's long-term building across the board, build up trust, build up credibility. Just people get to know, like, and trust your brand. If they don't know, like, and trust you, chances are they're not going to buy from you. Or if they do, they're not going to buy nearly as much, not going to be as valuable to you long-term wise. That's why we have to balance this out. Now, study after study, and the long and short have shown this, and we've seen other ones as well. Typically, about 70% of your marketing should go towards brand building, building up that trust. 30% on sales activation. Now, if you're in like the financial industry, when dealing with money, there's a lot of times that's closer to 80, almost 90% brand building. Because again, people have emotional relationships with money. It's kind of finicky, and it takes them a long time to trust an entity to kind of move that money on. But the bare minimum typically needs to be at least 60%. But time and time again, we see 70% being kind of more of that number between brand building and sales activation. And once people know your brand is up there, they will buy from you regardless if you tell them, hey, you've got a 20% off sale right now type of thing. But the trick is to balance out really both of them. Now, how we do that, where our strategy always starts with, is STP, segmentation, targeting, and positioning. So segmentation, let's pick on this for a second. So whatever your market is, your service, your product is, you can do work with, let's just call it, for argument's sake, 10 different segments. You have one that's going to be moms you can do some work with. You have another one that's going to be kids, I should say kids, but people between 18 to 30. You have another one that's going to be, maybe males that live in south part of Lincoln, that kind of whatever. So you have all these segments you could do marketing towards. People could buy your products. However, your marketing budget is whatever it is set. I'd rather take this marketing budget and then be able to target really 2 segments to try to hit that instead of 10 segments. Because if I take the same budget and go after 2 targets, that means I can make that much bigger of an impact with those 2 targets. So the next part of this targeting is, let's take a look at all the segmentation. Let's pick out, again, 2, sometimes 3 targets to truly go after. These are the ones that are going to be lowest hanging fruit, best way to get cash in the door today, longest or highest long-term value, whatever those criteria is. You want to pick out a few of those targets and do the majority, if not all, of your marketing initially towards those targets. Now you can sprinkle in more targets down the line, but we want to become focused. We want to be strategic about this, and we want to be able to make the biggest impact with whatever budget you have. Once we figure out that targeting, then we need to move into positioning. Is you have your core message over the top, what you want to get across, and each one of those targets might be tweaked a little bit in regards to that position. How do we position the message? How do we position your company? How do we position it in their mind so they remember it really as well? Because once we figure out the exact targets we want to go after and the exact position we need to do, this does really kind of dictate your marketing overall. It gives us those answers. Where should we place that? Is it Meta? Is it Google? Is it billboard? Is it TV? Is it radio? Is it fill in the blank? And all along with this is balancing branding with sales while focusing your audience. I mean, this truly does dictate your marketing and what that looks like. The other question I get all the time on especially the small business side of it is like, all right, like marketing budget, awesome, sounds good. What is a marketing budget? Like, how do I figure that out? What does that really look like? So we chunk it down a couple different ways. A lot of textbooks that you used to read and guidance, rule of thumb used to be between 8 to 10% of total revenue. That's what they always spouted. Honestly, what we see day in and day out is a lot closer to 3 to 4% of total revenue goes back into marketing. Now, you do have some companies that are super aggressive that really want to scale and they'll dump that much more into marketing. You have other ones that are like, hey, we just want to grow at a steady 5% per year, 7% per year, and they might shrink that number down a little bit. But on average, we're seeing about 3 to 4% of total revenue. And if you want to calculate that on your side of it, it gets you an idea of budget. The other thing that we've done is kind of reverse engineer it. So if we know the lifetime value of a client, then that gives us an idea of how much money we can spend to get that client. A lot of times this is more in that B2B business side of it, but we've seen the same thing in business to consumer. So let's just pretend for a second the lifetime value is $1,000 to grab a client. Well, if we know that, maybe we're willing to pay $300 today in order to get that $1,000 client. And I need to hit 10 clients to meet my goal. So what that means is that I'll just take 10 times that 300 because we're willing to spend 300, and that means we're going to spend $3,000 to try to collect those 10 clients. So we're going to reverse engineer that a little bit as well. But these are kind of the rules of thumb that we take a look at and really start building, because also with some of the budget, that helps us do branding, which is vitally important, along with that direct sales activation. Keep in mind, though, with any type of budget overall, is you have what's called a multiplier effect. Now, what the multiplier effect is when you add a new channel into your marketing, is it's not an addition problem. It truly is a multiplication problem. So it's not social media plus TV plus radio, 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 3. It's social media plus a 30% lift, because it's always a 30% lift. So it's times 1.3. Take that total times another 1.3, and that equates up to almost 4. And we see this time and time and time again, and across all kinds of studies, when you introduce new channels, it does make a huge impact on the previous channels that you have. So I'll get some case studies. We'll show you that here in a second. So the question comes down to, should I do TV or digital? Often the answer is yes. Do what you can. Now, with that being said, you can see a chart here. It shows out the 10 different channels you just continue to get better results. If I had the chart on a bigger screen, it would show right around 14 channels. You start getting diminishing returns to a certain extent. Now, truth be told, the majority of clients we work with between 3 to 5 channels. So you're probably never going to get to that diminishing returns part of it, but it's very important to think about 3 to 5 different channels you could take, that you could own, and you could really do well with. Because once we see that 3 mark, that's literally when we start seeing that tipping point, and your marketing as a whole starts really working out better, because more channels do equal out to be more effective. Now, this is a different study that took place, and the partners pretty much just shows the same thing. It's bump after bump after bump when you add new channels in this whole thing. So the question always comes back down to is, cool, what media is best though? I always say it depends on the market, but at times all of them. Again, that's why it's called a campaign. That's why it's called a marketing campaign. You want to be able to hit people where they're naturally at time and time and time again. But the question is, it sounds cool, but social media, we've always heard, is super cheap. Obviously, I've showed you the rising stats. Google's super cheap. It isn't traditional like TV, radio, billboards. Isn't that uber expensive? Well, I want to put this in perspective. I also understand that most of you probably don't buy much media because you don't have a point of reference for that. So what I want to be able to do is talk about when we're buying media, what this truly looks like. So meta ads, Facebook, Instagram, the CPMs. Now a CPM is the cost to reach 1,000 impressions. And that's how you buy all media, online media, offline media. You're always looking at those CPM costs. So the cost to reach or to get 1,000 impressions on Meta is roughly between 25 to 35 bucks. Just paint that picture, 25 to 35 bucks. Google AdWords is closer to 100 bucks and above. Now, the reason why Google's so expensive is regardless how you hear about somebody, you're going out to Google to find out that much more. So you're more than happy to pay a higher CPM cost because I am literally trying to search your brand out right now, your service, your product out right now, because I have a high level of intent. I'm more than happy to pay that. So let's pick on Meta. Let's pick on Meta ads again between $25 to $35 CPMs kind of across the board. So let's put in perspective because I see this data all the time. Radio ad, $11.50, about a third at times what a Meta ad would be. TV, about a fifth of the cost. Linear TV, this is cable TV, plugged in TV, if you will, $7.80. At times, you can buy spots for as little as $1. Now, I'm not talking about spots that air at 2 o'clock in the morning on some channel that nobody's ever heard of. When we first got this quote back, $8 TV spot, it was actually purchased out in the Front Range of Colorado. So you got Denver, Fort Collins, going to Cheyenne. And the spots came down to $1 a piece. And this is where the commercials were going to air between 6 a.m. and about 11 p.m. and more kind of that in between. So really decent, solid spot. It's super cheap. Streaming pretty much all day long. We bought streaming ads in LA market. We bought it down in the Florida market. We buy it in Nebraska all the time. Pretty much just straight across the board, $33 CPM. So again, right in the wheelhouse where Meta is at. Streaming, you think about Hulu, Roku, any of the apps, CBS has an app, ABC has an app, ESPN has an app, like HGTV has an app, all these companies have apps, and streaming side of it. Mass print, roughly $18 to $27 CPM, just kind of depends on the print publication. Niche regional, like The Economist. Now, this is one thing we'll talk about here in a little bit, is that you can actually get a bit more niche than just this. $30 to $54 CPM, so a bit higher. Direct mail could be as low as 64 cents a piece. Billboards, they work out really well. We actually own or renting a billboard, and we do our own billboard ads for Maly Marketing in Lincoln. Works out extremely well. Cost on that is $5.35. So again, a seventh of what Meta is across the board. So the question always pops up, cool, I understand traditional now, or I have a better point of reference in traditional. Traditional will actually be a hell of a lot cheaper than it is offline, but like no one consumes it. Well, this study came out, took a look at habits all throughout 2022. Radio, it hits 91% of people on a weekly basis. TV, one way or another, streaming, live, whatever, 76%. Social media, 70, break it down, internet, radio, 53, print publications, 52. Again, like this is hitting the majority of people on a very weekly basis across the board. It's just how people consume. So the question pops up is, all right, I have a better idea of market. I have a better idea now, kind of strategies, ideas as a whole, what channels potentially to at least start to explore. But like, how do I track it? Because that's the biggest issue you always have is tracking your marketing. Well, I go back to the story with GoodRx. So I've gotten to know the CMO, the Chief Marketing Officer of GoodRx over the last 10 years here at this point, 7, 8 years at this point in time. Brilliant dude. And again, at peak season, they'll spend about $25 million a month. So I asked him, like, hey man, like, how do you track your marketing? When you guys are spending $25 million, obviously they're not just running into a black hole, hoping and wishing things happen. How do you track it? He's like, hey, look, we got some data scientists on board. We have some of them that will crunch some of the numbers. He's like, that helps, but honestly, we're just trying to play horseshoes. We're just trying to get close. There's no tracking software out there in the world that will truly track a human behavior and how they make a purchasing decision. A ton of them will claim it. Actually, last year, we had a client that spent $89,000 just on tracking. And at the end of the day, $89,000 got them basically Google Analytics, which is free. Maybe another bell and whistle on top of it, but pretty much the same. So it always comes back down to what Bob Axe, the CMO of GoodRx, was talking about, is that it's not a pill you can take and tell you exactly how it's happening. You're just trying to play horseshoes. You're just trying to see how this all comes together, how this all kind of fits. Why is it so difficult to really fully track your marketing and know 100% what is happening and what is not happening? It's multiplication effect. It's what we just talked about earlier. When you add in new channels or multiply the previous channels, make those channels look that much better, and how it's really kind of performing across the board. The other aspect of it, like how do you factor in, I drove past your store, I saw the sign on your store, or I was at a stoplight and I looked over and there was a truck with the magnet with your brand on it. Or I was at home and I was talking to my neighbor and my neighbor brought your brand up. Like, how do you factor that stuff in? Because that's some of the stuff is the biggest influence points you can have, and you just can't. So again, any company, any person, any service that says we can 100% track your marketing is full of crap. With that being said, there are ways to at least, again, play horseshoes. Let's get close on the full side of it. One of them, let's just get baselines on Google Analytics. If again, regardless of somebody finds out about you, if it's an online ad, billboard, TV, neighbor talking to you, chances are you're going to Google to find out that much more. So monitor the increase in traffic you see on your organic traffic. That's people naturally go to Google to find out information about you, as well as your direct traffic. Now, direct traffic is a bucket at this point in time that Google doesn't know exactly where it came from. So let's put it in the direct category. But typically, when we're running ads, we see a nice increase. I'll show you numbers here shortly in organic traffic and a really nice increase in direct traffic. So create baseline. Like we've done this for our marketing that we're doing for ourselves. Right now, we have billboards that are live, and then we have TV ads that are live in a bunch of different markets. And between organic and direct traffic, we are seeing compared to the same time last year, I just pulled these numbers yesterday, it is about a 76% increase in organic traffic since we started running some of these TV commercials and billboards. You can also take a look at marketing efficiency ratio. That's total sales divided by total marketing spend. It'll get you a number. Let's just say that number is 3. Well, now when you introduce a new channel, introduce some additional marketing, if that number goes up, that means you're becoming a bit more effective. Number goes down, not as effective. It's kind of a rough rule of thumb, but it gives you a gauge at least. Google Data Studio, which actually is rebranded to Looker Studio, but still owned by Google at this point in time. It'll take a little bit of work, but it's a free system. You can pull in direct information from Meta, from Google spreadsheets, CRM systems, websites. You can pull it in from like TV vendors and audio vendors and all kinds of stuff. And it gives you a really nice dashboard just to be able to see what's working, who's come to your site, how long are they on your site, that type of stuff. Vanity URL. So how we do this, instead of us using like malymarketing.com, maybe our billboard is outsourcednebraska.com. Maybe our print ad is bestagencyinlincoln.com. Maybe our TV ad is, bestnebraska.com, whatever it is. But you use vanity URL, it points directly to your website. You don't need to create a new website. You don't need to change anything there. The domain, the vanity URL will cost you $10 for the year, roughly. You again just forward it to a page that's already created on your website, but it helps set up some tracking. So for some of our clients, we might own 7, 8, 9 domains, $70 all in for some of the tracking. And how it works is something like this. And this is a screenshot from Google Analytics. What I can take a look at is Hell Varsity Magazine, Nebraska Life Magazine, State Tourism, St. Paul. This is a tourism sign of ours. And what we do is we take a look at this. Hey, how much traffic is coming to your site from these things? One thing to keep in mind with those vanity URLs, you'll have roughly between 10 to 20% of the people typing that vanity URL in direct. The rest, 80%, will be typing in your brand because they're familiar with your brand, and sort of type it in your brand to see what's happening. What we're trying to do is just kind of paint that picture. So if you take a look at the far right-hand side, the goal conversion rate, that's what we really take a look at. So for example, Hell Varsity converted at 14%, 15%, decent, solid. Jumped down to number 3. That was a 9% conversion rate for that ad. Not so good. Jumped down to number 5, St. Paul. St. Paul was actually a brand new buy that we just did for this client, and it converted at 21%. It's like, cool. Now we have some data. It's converting really well. That audience really likes our message. Let's remove number 3, that web ad, and let's put that money into the St. Paul ad down below. So when we take a look at buying media for the next year, this at least paints that brush and gets us close, playing horseshoes on where can we pull back and where should we really kind of double down. And it's really pretty slick system. So stuff like this even helps kind of paint that picture to figure out what seems to be driving the most traffic, what seems to be working. So let's take a look at some case studies on this whole side of it. Let's take a look at digital campaigns first. So with the digital campaigns first, is like a restoration company, for example, is with all these people, I'll take a step back, with all these people, we ran digital campaigns for X amount of months prior. And then on a very specific date, we introduced TV, radio, billboards, combo, some kind of traditional media. So what we want to do is take a look, what does that data look like 30 days prior to introducing this to 30 days after introducing this. So restoration company, it ran digital ads for 3 months. We introduced direct mail. Organic search went up by 76%, and the number of leads you got the first week doubled compared to the previous best week you had. Tourism clients, we ran digital for 3 months for this call for a good time. Again, I know somebody researched about that. Call for a good time campaign. We ran it in Lincoln. Lincoln's a big feeder community for North Platte on the tourism side of it. So we introduced billboard and guerrilla campaign, and the whole call to action was getting call in that phone number for a good time. Search traffic in Lincoln went up 45%. Calls to that number went up almost 300%. Clicks on the ad online went up 92%. Now, keep in mind, we did not change budget on those ads. We did not optimize differently in those ads. We made no changes online whatsoever to those ads. But now they've seen you in the real world, your clicks have gone up almost double. Lead costs dropped by 72%. Financial firm, same thing, 24% increase in web traffic once radio started. The stat I love most on this is that second bullet point, 26% more time on site. So it's not just more tire kickers, more people come and check you out. Like, they are invested. They're going a lot deeper into a lot of it. Same story, 44% increase in leads, and those costs dropped by over 20%. So time and time again, we see this. Time and again, we see it rough, an increase between 20 to 40% on your organic traffic, depends on what you're getting. Like, so right now, we're experiencing about 70%. And then your cost, either acquire a customer, get a lead, and whatever it may be, drop between 20 to 30% as well. So it's a really good balance on that whole. So best practices overall, how we take a look at this and how do we start tying some of the stuff together overall, is that one, we always buy very specific TV channels. Now, when I say TV channels, it's not just really the channel, if you will, it's the app. HGTV, Fox News, History, they all have apps, so I talk about on both sides of it. If I'm selling to a conservative market, you buy on Fox News. Selling to women, largely Bravo, HGTV. You know, the history lovers, History Channel. The other nice thing is you can chunk it down to zip codes as well to become really targeted. Because your viewing habits of somebody that watches Bravo and HGTV a lot tells me a ton about that individual, just like if somebody watches Fox News tells me a bunch about that individual. So a lot of times we're taking a look at between 5 to 7 networks total we'd be advertising on, more often than not, unless it's a live sporting event. It's not ABC, CBS, NBC. It is truly going to be some of those cable channels, if you think about it, kind of old school way, or the apps now with streaming. Super Bowl ads. Now, ads cost anywhere between 5.5 to 7 million per year. However, roughly about 20% of ads have to be held back during the Super Bowl for local advertisers. Most of those local advertisers' ads appear during halftime and then towards the end of the fourth quarter. End of the fourth quarter, because you don't know if it's going to be a good game, bad game. Maybe you have viewership, maybe you don't. If you do, then obviously it's just that much more pop for you, if you will. But you can buy Super Bowl ads in local markets for as low as $4,000. We did this for a client a couple of years ago, bought it in the local market for $4,000. We had a ton of traffic to hit the website during the Super Bowl, so we knew that obviously people were seeing it. And again, how people consume content is with their phones as well. And type it in as they're watching the Super Bowl on the TV, do some searches and stuff like that. The other aspect, all the rest of the advertising we did with that commercial was literally as seen during the Super Bowl. So we're running Facebook ads or Instagram ads or YouTube ads or whatever it was, as seen during the Super Bowl. And it really gives you that signal, like, oh my God, this is legit. This really is serious, because they dropped a bunch of money on it. Niche print, like strictly business is a good example. Lincoln Omaha, there's tons of examples all over the board. Niche print can work out extremely well. Now, if you have a little bit more of a budget too, you can even do niche print and target people just in Nebraska with Wall Street Journal or The Economist or Architectural Digest or some of those big brands. Good Housekeeping is another one. You don't have to buy national buys in order to get those publications. You can do very regional, and that stuff can work out really well because the ads will only show up in those markets that you pre-select. Locally, Nebraska Press Association, you can get in some small town papers. If your audience is largely 60 plus, you can get into some of these small town papers for, I think, as low as like $300 to get you into 20 papers, 30 papers. I don't remember the exact number top of mind, but cheap, and it can work out really, really well. Billboards. rotate typically 1 to 2 billboards in the market, have an up rotation and basically 4-week rotation. So have them up for a while. It actually works out really well B2B. We had an accounting firm we're doing a lot of work with, and for them is they worked with people that work with their hands. Think of mechanics, HVAC people, and people in the trades. And a lot of people in the trades have, industrial parks. Their offices or shops are all set up in an industrial park. And so we bought a bunch of billboards surrounding industrial parks and specific communities. And now people are seeing them driving to work or driving back from work day in and day out. That's exactly their market. The whole goal is I feel like I see you everywhere, which goes into the holy grail of this whole thing, is if you have a list or you can purchase a list. Let's just say you purchase a list of 10,000, potentially really good buyers for you. You can actually upload it to a TV provider. And you can tell them, hey, on Thursday, start running TV commercials to this list. So you can upload a TV provider. On Thursday, they'll start running commercials. You can hit direct mail to that same list. So on Thursday, they now get a direct mail piece from you. And then also on Thursday, they just magically start seeing Facebook and Google ads appear and Instagram ads appear inside their feed. So now they're seeing you all over the place, and it really is, I see you everywhere. You must have a bunch of money. You must be uber successful, if you're doing this much advertising. Well, the key is you're not advertising everybody. You're just advertising that 10,000 person list, if you will, which is obviously a heck of a lot cheaper than trying to advertise 100,000, 200,000, million people. But if they feel like they see you everywhere, then it just adds that much more credibility to what you're trying to get done. So takeaways in this whole thing, at the end of the day, people are distracted. So make sure you are distinctive on this whole thing. Costs are becoming much more expensive. Any more traditional media can be many times cheaper than online media. And I'm not discounting online media. It still works extremely well. About half of our revenue comes from online media managed those accounts. And there's definitely huge value there. But people have been discounting traditional for so long, and traditional is making a huge impact. And the data shows you. Again, there's no guarantees in marketing. There's no promises on the full side of it. But those case studies I showed you, I've pulled probably 15 different case studies, either for presentations like this or for award season. I've yet to pull out a case study that showed multi-channel marketing does not improve your marketing overall. Again, no guarantees. I'm sure I'll come across one at some point in time that doesn't work, but it truly is a multiplication problem. So with that being said, I always enjoy kind of giving these trainings, the education on it. I always enjoy hearing your feedback as well. So if you have any insights, you have any feedback, like, hey, I tried this worked out really well, awesome. Or, hey, I want to try this, I got a question, or like, dude, I tried it and it sucked, like it was terrible. I'm always open to that. Let me know. I'll always like having these type of conversations. The big thing is, I'm trying to teach my kids the same thing as well. There's one thing I always want you to remember, especially here for Nebraska as a whole, is at the end of the day, Iowa, it's just the worst state ever. Terrible. So again, there's my contact info. I'm going to have to dive here in a couple of minutes. Overall, I do see there's a couple of questions. So let me stop sharing my screen here and see if there's any questions that need to be, here we go. Do all marketing campaigns follow the same old plan, or does it change based on the company? It truly changes, not only based on the company, but really based on the audience that you're going after. So if you truly define that audience, that will help dictate the marketing campaign. Now, if you have a marketing campaign as a whole, as we talked about at the beginning, is that some of the campaign messaging might need to tweak depending on the target you're going after. But really, it should be customized to the audience and what the company is trying to sell, what they have. Business starting out, where should I start right now? Good question. So what I take a look at is where are your audience at? Where is your audience at naturally, especially with a limited budget on it? A lot of times what it looks like, what we end up doing is your audience naturally is going to be on Google, trying to find out more information about you, a competitor, or service, product, that are several years. Typically, we want to put up a foundation of at least Google AdWords. So if somebody's at Google right now with a level of intent, let's start our budget on Google AdWords to at least start capturing some of those people. That can work out really well. The other side of it is if it's very limited, you can spend a little bit of cash on Facebook to help build that awareness, drive people. When I say Facebook Meta, to drive people back to digital. Once budget starts opening up, and you can make TV buys. I'm going to talk about that here now. You can make TV buys as low as like $800 for a month. Obviously, you might restrict. You might not be able to do those TV ads 30 days out of the month, but maybe it's 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off for about $800. That's the other component I take a look at, because TV consumption is higher than almost any other media. And when I say TV consumption, the stats have come out time and time again. The average person, they say, watches TV for almost 4 hours a day. Now, I don't call it watching. I think a lot of it is the TV is on. Some people watch it 4 hours a day. A lot of times TV is on while you're doing other activities. As you're getting, the kids ready for bed, if you're making dinner, if you're doing whatever, but you're at least still listening, you're still hearing the TV itself. So that would be the next kind of traditional channel I'd take a look at, just because the consumption is so high. In the credibility standpoint, if you're on TV, it's like, you must have money, you got TV money, if you will. You must be fully credible. And we see that driving more traffic to Google than just about anything. So that's what I'll take a look at as well. With that being said, if there's any other final questions, again, feel free to reach out to me. More than happy to talk shop on this type of stuff. I know Zoe, you're going to be sending out the replay as well. Obviously, you can replay, but you can reach out to me to talk through some of this stuff as well. But unless you have any final questions, I'll have to get jumping here in a minute to transport my daughter.
Yeah. So I will have Steve's contact information in the recording send out. So if any other questions arise, or to those of you watching the recording, you will have a source to reach out to with those questions. So thank you though, Steve, for presenting today.
Oh, I definitely appreciate it.
Okay, well, we'll just get this wrapped up so you can head out. Hopefully, let's see, I don't know. There we go. Takes a little bit. So thank you again, Steve, for presenting, and thank you to everyone that attended live. And if you're watching the recording, we missed you, but we're so happy that you're learning some marketing skills from Steve. If you have any questions for me, feel free to reach out at zoe@grownebraska.org, or feel free to give our store a call, and any of our team members will help you out. We have some awesome upcoming trainings. Our next one will be next Thursday, June 22nd. And we will cover Show Me the Money budgeting tips for small businesses, and that will be with Kylie Phelps. And then July 5th, the first Wednesday of July, will be with Maria Elena Duran, and she will cover how to launch your business with customer-focused marketing. These are both live on our website, so feel free to scan the QR code, and that will take you directly to the website to get registered for those. And then we also have our next 2 July trainings up as well. Save the date. Market Tech Conference will be February 29th. We already have, and that should be 2024. So sorry about that. We've already done the 2023 one. And the speakers will be announced soon, so be on the lookout for more information about that. And then, as always, feel free to leave us a Google review and let us know how we're doing. We really appreciate reviews, so feel free to scan the QR code. But that's all my announcements for today. So again, thank you everyone, and I hope you all have a good rest of your week.
Thank you.
Bye.